Hello friends, and welcome back to another part of our Ultra Supreme Max difficulty playthrough. We are picking up where we left off last time, where I said as soon as the next meteor shower happens, I will bring us back and we will make sure that our setup is doing what we expect it to. And here you go. It is shooting down meteors for us to keep everything protected, meaning that we should be able to continue our solar panel expansion outward. The only thing that I think we need to fix up on this setup, by the way, is these will turn off probably a little bit too early. So I may need to set up something to keep them on for just a little bit longer. So I'm going to put this on a buffer gate to make sure that it stays on for a little bit longer. I think if I hook it up this way, it'll stay on for like indefinitely, or at least for a little bit of amount of time, and then I'll cut the wire. But yeah, it looks like it's doing its job. So we've got that up and running now. The biggest thing that I've been... took a little bit of damage over here on the side because this couldn't cover it, by the way. The biggest thing that we need to accomplish in this video is we need to start getting out into space and mining some of these asteroids, because the achievement for that takes a really long time, and we are going to make a hilariously huge setup for that so that we have as many rockets out as possible at one time. We'll see how wild we can get this. Yeah, this is exactly why I wanted that buffer gate, because this damage should not have happened if it was staying on for a little bit longer. So yeah, that is going to be the idea. The plan here is we're going to need to mine out a lot. I'm going to need to mine out basically this whole area, and this is going to be our gigantic rocket setup, and I'm just going to make it huge for the sake of making it huge. So we're going to go all out, get this as big as we can get it, and hopefully run a lot of missions at the same time just to be silly. So this might take a while, at least in game time, to get this done. So that is the plan. We'll talk about the little different nuances of it as we get started. But the first thing that we need is we need a lot more water. We need all of our duplicants home. Let's check on the other asteroid. Oh, by the way, I forgot to do this. If you are new here, or if you want just a quick refresher, the rules of this run are that I have to play on the hardest difficulty, on the hardest asteroids, on the hardest seeds, at least with no mods. I'm also not allowed to pick my duplicants. We can't lose any duplicants. Gotta get all the achievements, all that fun stuff. So that's what we're up to here. Hopefully by now you have seen other videos so that you know what the deal is with that. So yeah, let's check on the other asteroid really quickly. We are about ready to leave. This other asteroid is almost entirely mined out. The one thing I'm going to be doing here also is vacuuming out a bunch of the asteroid, just so that I can save on processing on my machine. You're going to start running into this if you play later games, where the biggest restriction is basically how much your computer can do at once. So I'm going to start vacuuming out sections just so there's no processing being used to try to keep up the temperature and the pressure of the air and stuff in here. So I'll be leaving a couple duplicants behind to do that. We might also take more duplicants to help us out. I don't know how big this colony is eventually going to get, but we have plenty more resources to work with, and I'm going to start sending water back to this asteroid as well, just so we can grow more food for those duplicants, and we will get on almost entirely berry sludge once that happens, because we'll have plenty of dirt left over. We'll have a lot of water to get all this stuff replaced. So yeah, that's going to be the plan. So first of all, let me get the other asteroid all fixed up. Let me expand out our space setup a little bit further here, probably all the way over to the wall, just so that we can get extra solar panels. And we are eventually going to be building up to decommissioning our Shinebug reactor, at least for power. We will be keeping it for radiation so that we have rocket fuel. And we'll be doing basically only rockets with radiation, so this will be an interesting adventure, and we'll see how insane we can make this setup, but I'm hoping it will be pretty interesting and pretty fun to follow. So yeah, just need to start clearing this out, expand this. There might be a big gap between this section and the next one, only because there's a lot to do, but watching me dig stuff out isn't exactly exciting. So I'll be on that, and we'll recap as we go, and we'll talk about things as we need to, but yeah. By the end of this video, you will see a gigantic rocket setup over here, and yeah, we'll talk through it. Alright, just in the interest of making sure that we have all of our duplicant prints happening on screen, here's the one that we got this time. This is not good at all. Allergies, allergic reaction to fluorescent. We're dependent almost entirely on that for food right now, so We might need to do some weird stuff with Amari just to keep him away from everything. I'm not sure what to do with this. This is the second Amari, by the way, so... Tumari. Sure, that's your name. Creativity clearly shining through here. Alright, we'll put him to work, and hopefully he won't be sneeze fest. I can't believe that I didn't do this when it was time to take this duplicant, but this name is not good. We need a better name. How about another Mari? There, we have a Mari and another Mari. Alright, that was a dumb segment. Okay, check-in time. We are running very low on our salt, which doesn't sound like a big deal. If we were back, like, 2,000 years ago, that would be an emergency. Conquer entire lands for salt. But the fact that we're running out means that we are going to need to switch on to a different oxygen source. So I think it's finally time to get our electrolyzer setups going. And I'm going to do this kind of the more nerdy way. I talk about this a lot in the sense that there's a lot of people that talk about these like electrolyzer setups that can power themselves, which is neat, but you obviously still have to spend cooling and you obviously still have to spend water. So there are still expenses and outputs. Electrolyzers are still very good, but I also do think that there's a lot of like attention paid to them for how to fully optimize them to get the absolute most out of it. I usually don't care that much about it, but we will talk about a setup here that is a little bit more optimized. So let's start building this out. So first of all, we're going to have a like area where our electrolyzers are that's going to stay very warm. So I'm not going to worry too much about cooling these machines. I'm just going to expect them to stay relatively hot, and then we will cool the oxygen that comes out of them by just running them through this pit of ethanol, which has pushed our cooling for a long time. So we're just going to continue to lean into it. So the setup for this is going to be fairly straightforward. You're going to need two different levels when you do something like this. And the bottom level really is just going to be where your gas pumps are going to be. I don't remember the exact spacing. We might need to redo some of this. But we're going to build this all out of steel. The bottom area is going to be your gas pumps that you're going to set up. And then you're going to, right on top of that, put an electrolyzer. So this electrolyzer can kind of sit right here. And there's a couple of different spacings that you can use, and I honestly don't remember the exact best place to do it. I feel like it's better if it's closer to the top, but I can't remember for sure. It's either here or it's here. I can't remember. So let's just make a mistake potentially and build it here. All right. Then right below that, you're going to need a piece of automation to check the air pressure to make sure that these gas pumps are actually needed to be turned on. So I'm going to put an atmos sensor here, which is just going to check to be like, okay, is it worth turning these pumps on or not? If you have the pumps running all the time, then it's really not worth spending the energy on, because otherwise you're going to be spending more energy than you're actually creating here. The other thing, too, is we could set something up to combine a couple of these different setups. So I'm going to create, let's see how many we're going to need here. One of these pushes about 8 duplicants. We might need 3 in total. So I might wind up making 4 just so we can kind of grow into it. But the idea is basically you're going to put down electrolyzers here in the middle. Going to create an area that is like all kind of like blocked off, I guess, except for the top tile. And that top tile is going to be used to put a pump in the middle there to pump out the hydrogen. And the way that these things work, basically, is you have a setup that produces both oxygen and hydrogen. And the hydrogen is effectively going to start drifting all up into here and going to be drawn out by this gas pump, assuming there's enough pressure to draw the hydrogen out. And then all the oxygen is going to get drawn out here, which we can... Usually the more closed off you have these, the better. So if I close this off and kind of have one electrolyzer dedicated to these two pumps and one electrolyzer dedicated to these two, it's a little bit more efficient. So like I mentioned, there's a whole bunch of ways to make this fully super duper optimized. I have stated many, many times I really don't care that much about it. I think it's like small potatoes compared to a lot of other things that could be going on in the game. But we haven't really ever made like a super optimized version of this. And I'm not going to claim that this is the most optimal version of it either. But this is a version that is 100% positive when it comes to power usage, even though we're still having to spend our, water and cooling and that kind of stuff. So there you go, something like this. And again, I can't remember if it's more efficient to have this moved up one or not. I feel like this is better. It's been a long time since I've ran tests with this type of thing, so why not just wing it and make mistakes? That's also like something that I wanted to mention with this series too. This series has been a lot of fun for me because it's like a place that I'm okay with making mistakes, if that makes sense. Like, if I'm doing a walkthrough series, I feel like I have to be a lot more rehearsed and prepared and know exactly how things are going to go. But in this playthrough, I think it's more fun for me to just be like, well, we might mess up, whatever. And then converse with people about, like, what we could have done differently, or... I mean, if the colony would have failed, that would have been a very interesting discussion to have. Let me block all these off, by the way. I guess the inside, I don't really need these to be... insulated tiles. They could just be regular ones. So I guess we could just do this. So I definitely find it more fun to just kind of like wing it, make mistakes sometimes. Sometimes you find out really cool things that way. Sometimes you don't. But I think it's more fun to play that way for sure. So I'm enjoying doing this and finding out either optimal or suboptimal ways of doing things. And I also feel like this game is much more about like the creativity of things that you do as opposed to just like raw strategy. In terms of like winning at this game, if you were just copying exactly what someone else does, is like pretty easily doable, I think. But that's of course my perspective of talking after playing it for so long. But once you kind of figure things out, like there's a way you could do things every single time, or you could vary it up and do something different. And I just kind of prefer to do something different. So, anyway, now that my little rant is over, which always gets triggered by these types of builds, let's get our water setup going, because we're going to need water to push this, and not relying on the same systems that we already have, because our water levels are actually not that great. So if I start taking even more from our water, then that's going to be bad. So what I've been doing sneakily behind the scenes for a long time here is getting all of the salt water that's on the map, and kind of collecting it in one place. We could also use this clean water. Ultimately, I will use this salt water, which is very hot. But if everything inside here is already made out of steel, then I think we'll be fine in terms of resisting all the heat. I just need to double check that I did make everything out of steel here. Yep, okay. So yeah, something like this will give enough oxygen for roughly 16 duplicants. I think I'm going to build 2 of them. And then the setup that I'm going to use for water, first of all, I want to use all this salt water. And since I'm going to be using salt water long term, we might as well set up something to refine it. So I'm just going to use a few desalinators, nothing too fancy. And set them up right here. I've already redone the cooling loop to kind of extend up a little bit further. And I'm going to put 3 down just because one of them may have some downtime while it's being cleaned or whatever. This is also like, I would have liked to put the desalinators like inside this brick so that I wouldn't have to worry about cooling it, but then my duplicants need to get in here and actually clean these out every once in a while. So yeah, that's going to be the idea. So, oh, one thing I forgot to mention is the sensors for turning on the pump to draw in hydrogen. We just need them on the top level here, because eventually this top level will only be hydrogen, and the stuff that filters down into this block will also only be hydrogen. But I need to close this off first. I don't really have the space to do it yet, so we'll let our duplicants finish this up. So yeah, let's do that. I'll create a fun little montage right here just of everything getting built. Then when we're ready to turn it on, we will get it going. So yeah, let's do that. Okay, let's start this thing up. First of all, let's talk about how this is hooked up. So the idea here is that each one of the sections for an electrolyzer that connects to gas pumps has its own line. Those lines are all going to go through our cold ethanol, and they will be distributed through our normal systems here. My duplicants are in the middle of tearing out the old system, so I just hooked them up to the same lines that were there before, just having them route through here to get cooled first. Ought to solve it. So what we need to do to start this up is, first of all, let's set something that basically vacuums this out so that we get as little as possible through the top pumps that is not hydrogen. You will always get just a little bit, but that initial amount, if it just goes in here and damages the hydrogen generators a bit, that's fine. I just need it to eventually settle to a point that only the top is hydrogen and only the bottom is oxygen. So the easiest way to do that, at least that I've found, is just to vacuum this out quite a bit so that when we turn it on, the air pressure basically favors having hydrogen build up here. And then once we have a full layer of hydrogen up here, that's when we can turn the top ones on. So that'll make it a little bit easier to do that. This might take a little bit to get all settled, but that's going to be the idea. I'll show it when it's all running here in just a minute. But yeah, the distribution and everything ought to be good. So let me let this run for just a bit to make sure that we're not just sitting here watching this happening, because it's not very exciting. So I'll get this all settled to a point where we turn on the rest of the system, and then we'll come back. Okay, both sides are starting to settle now, so there you go. That's effectively where you want to get, especially for the right side. So the right side, the top tiles are basically all hydrogen. The bottom tiles are eventually all going to just be oxygen. Same with the left once it gets there. There you go. Once you get that first layer on there, that ought to stabilize everything. Then what should happen is when new packets are created, it should just merge with these top packets, and then when we get enough pressure, we'll pump them out. We will send them into some tanks here, and the piping that I have is basically going to prefer the hydrogen that comes from the setup here so that we don't block this. If it starts getting blocked up, then these will start bringing out hydrogen, and that's not what we want. We're basically getting filtering for free with this type of setup, so we definitely don't want hydrogen to start getting in the wrong lines or oxygen to get in the wrong lines. But as long as it's settled like this, and the tuning on this you can kind of mess around with a little bit, but as long as it sticks somewhere around 300, 400, or 500, somewhere in there, you should be fine, and then it will start distributing out to everywhere else it's supposed to go. Let's see what kind of cooling we're getting from this. It's going to start changing quite a bit too, because the water that we're sending in isn't particularly hot. But this setup, since there is no cooling, will eventually run very hot, but nothing in here should get damaged, because we have plenty of room before that's going to start happening. And effectively, because we're vacuuming out all of the air all the time, the water that comes in here will cool it. We will eventually be using very hot water because we'll be using it from this saltwater geyser. But for the time being, we should be fine. We'll just kind of keep an eye on it, make sure that the heat is going to be good. But because we have all the steel is why we can get away with something like this. And you don't need to worry about cooling nearly as much with something like this. The other thing, too, is if you ever need to have a temperature-proof way of sending heavy watt wire in somewhere, this is a way you can do it. Just kind of put a gas pump or a mini gas pump in a little area and then vacuum it out, and that way there's really no way for heat to be conducted between these two walls because there's nothing in the middle here. So if you have a vacuum in between two things, they will never exchange their heat. So there you go. Pretty simple way to have heavy watt wire going in there, which is one of the more annoying things with heavy watt wires because you can't run it through tiles. I guess unless you have a mod or something like that, but yeah, there you go. Pretty standard electrolyzer setup. Probably not the most like hyper efficient version of it, but I also have more than I need right now, and if I need to add more, that's also fine. There's also so many other factors with how the oxygen could be distributed and where it's going to be used by your duplicants and what kind of air pressure you want in different places, so I don't know. Not really worth worrying about too much. As long as you got something like this and it works, then great. So cool. Yeah, we'll keep an eye on this. I really don't want my hydrogen tanks to fill up, otherwise that's going to be kind of bad. So I might need to put on some automation or something like that to warn me when something like that is about to happen. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. Okay, so now is time for the behemoth. let's start getting this up. The biggest thing that we need to do is I want to move all of my shine bugs somewhere that can generate radiation for me and free up this area for other stuff. I'm probably going to create the rocket platform right here. There's an oil well that's in the way that's a little bit annoying, so maybe just slightly above that. And this rocket platform is going to have to also have its own built-in cooling, because that's probably where we are going to be making our liquefiable fuel, if we ever wind up needing it. I don't know if we will. I've talked about it a lot in my other videos, but if we can just survive on radiation the entire time, then that would be pretty interesting, so we might do that. Yay! You get the shine bugs cheering all the time, so maybe we'll get one. There you go, they're really happy. Alright, so we're going to move all these shine bugs over to a different spot. We're going to keep building out this top area to get more solar panels, more meteor blasters, that kind of stuff. We should be able to get out here now that we actually have distribution of oxygen again. So, yeah, lots of idleness and a lot of boring stuff that I got to do, so we'll probably make a montage of the smaller things that I'm doing throughout the build. And then once we start getting down to the nuts and bolts of it, we'll come back and kind of talk about the whole setup. But yeah, it should be interesting. Okay, what's this contraption we're building? Well, this is going to be our death zone for radiation. We have a shine bug reactor going on here, and we're going to compress every single shine bug down into this one tile if we can. I'm not 100% sure if the shine bugs will be able to escape from that area, and I'm also not 100% sure if they will be happy being crammed in there like that. And what I mean by that is like in liquid, because we already know if the room is big enough, and this room is 26,000 tiles. I don't think they should have a problem with that. We already know that the water doesn't create a different room, but I have never tried this exact setup before. So I want to see what happens if I put a guinea pig shine bug in here. That's an interesting visual, a guinea pig shine bug. I want to have my duplicants come grab this one, and then run it down into that spot, just to see what happens. Like, I want to see and make sure that the reproduction rate stays the same. I want to make sure that it can't get through the water, because it will also drop eggs here, and if the eggs can hatch and they, like, path out of here for some reason, that'll be a problem. If this works, and we can just cram them all in this one spot, then that'll be perfect. The reason why is because we can start putting down a whole bunch of rad bolt generators right here. And we can kind of configure this to cram these in here as much as possible. Like that. And I will not probably have all of these running at the same time, but who knows? It depends on how much radiation we get in this one spot, and it depends on how many rockets we need to fill up at one time. We might just do it for funsies anyway, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a signal switch on all of these, and I will disconnect and reconnect some of them depending on how many I need running at one time. So yeah, we're doing some silly stuff here. Also, how many watts does this use? I feel like I should run a heavy watt wire here. Yeah, 480. We might as well. We already have one right next to it. So, let's get rid of these real quick. Snip. Okay, my duplicants will not be able to get back here once I close off this door. So the plan is to eventually... Why am I having such a hard time placing all this stuff? Guess we'll just have to go this way. So the plan is I will grab all of the eggs. And yeah, let's make sure the shine bug is okay. I think that it should be fine. Let's check its statuses. Yeah, still totally fine, looks happy enough, looking for food, whatever. Let's drop some eggs in here. So the idea that I'm going to be doing, I don't want to move all these shine bugs at once because my duplicants will get very sick coming in here. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to block off the bottom with these pneumatic doors. And then as eggs are laid, I'm going to have my duplicants grab them and run them to this bin. Just because it's less labor intensive to grab an egg than it is to grab an actual bug. So I will probably need to kind of throttle them a little bit, not let them do everything all at once. Just to make sure that we don't get a situation where everybody is super radiation poisoned. And we also do have a cooling setup here, which was shown in the montage. We've already made so many of these by now, they should be pretty routine. So this is just going to keep all of this area cool, because these rad bolt generators will generate a good amount of heat while they are running. So yeah, pretty simple setup here. No reason to go over it too many times. The idea with this is we're going to bounce all these rad bolts to a certain spot, and then whenever we have rockets that need it, it's just going to like fly through here and fill them up. So yeah, this is kind of the first little part of what we need to make sure that this is going to work out. And then all I can do is block my duplicants off from coming through here once I get everything built. Just so that they are not exposed to this radiation, because the radiation here is going to be nuts. We'll see how big we can get it, I guess. And hopefully we will see that we can drop eggs in here. These guys will still be happy. They'll still make more eggs. Once I get some of the more tame ones in here. Actually, let's just do an experiment with one of them just to make sure, because we can actually see their reproduction rates on the tame ones. I don't think there's going to be a problem with this, but again, haven't really done it exactly like this before. 6. So yeah, let's build out the rest of this. Let's make sure to get our shine bugs moved over. And in the meantime, we're going to start mining out basically the whole map. This is going to take me a little while, because I need to mine out all of the area that the rocket platforms are going to sit. And the rocket platforms are probably going to start somewhere over here and extend all the way over to the wall. We're going all the way with this. We're not messing around. So yeah, lots of digging and lots of not very captivating work to be done here. So it looks like he's killing the shine bug. He's actually just digging in the corner. So yeah, I'll be working on that for the next long while. We'll see how long it takes. Okay, part 2 of getting this setup up and running is about ready to start. So now that I've got this whole area set up, the path for each of these... Let me get into the radiation view. The path for each of these is all going to shoot up through this one spot right here, which I will open up after clearing all this area out. We're not going to turn this on yet, but we will turn it on by the end of the video once we get our behemoth rocket setup going. But the thing that we're going to start doing is locating all the eggs to this one spot. So I'm just going to select all of the different type of shine bug eggs and have them brought here. And I'm not going to have them brought by way of sweeping. I'm just going to have them brought by anything that's on the map, like regardless of whether it's marked for sweep or not. I knew I was forgetting one. And then if my duplicants are blocked from getting back down there, they'll basically put it in the dispenser. The dispenser will spit it out, and then my duplicants won't be able to get to it anymore. So as long as I have this up, no matter where the shine bug eggs are laid, as long as it's somewhere outside of this area, my duplicants will grab it and bring it to this bin. So we will very slowly, over the course of maybe like the next 25 to 30 cycles, because that's how long it takes for one of these to live and or lay an egg, they should all be located right here. So yeah, there we go. There's our first one. It's going to drop through, and yeah, my duplicants can't get to it. So that'll be the plan. They'll just be constantly running back and forth, bringing them all here, one at a time, slowly, just because it's a little bit more effective when we're clearing out this big reactor here. So yeah, power will transfer to this side of the map. All right, I'm going to continue to mine all this stuff out. I'm just getting the shipping stuff set up so that we can move all the debris to the one spot that is going to be our like sorting area, using the shipping tricks that we talked about earlier. So yeah, here we go. All right, really quickly, one thing that we need, the more territory that we take out in space, is we need a constant flow of petroleum. So I'm just going to go ahead and take this one oil well. I think that's all we're going to need. Not 100% sure, but I do think so. A little bit of a water problem happening on the other asteroid right now, by the way, so we might get warnings about that. But it's under control. So yeah, all this setup is really going to be is sending water in here, which we're going to use the hot water that we're getting from the saltwater geyser that's down here. which is starting to amass water in here. I don't know why I scrolled with that overlay on the whole time, but there you go. And then we're going to be cleaning it and sending it back into here. We can use really hot water. We're going to put a liquid pump and a gas pump, both of them made out of steel, inside here. The gas pump's to get the natural gas out, and the liquid pump is to get the oil out. So that ought to keep this area flowing pretty nicely and keep our blast shot going, because otherwise we will run out of blast shot and everything that's up here that we're relying on will start getting damaged. Namely these solar panels. These are going to need to take over as my main solar energy because our area with shine bugs is basically done. There's not really much more to do other than just get rid of the suits and let my duplicants in to deconstruct everything. So we're barely getting any power from here now. And that's because they have all, or more specifically the next generation of shine bugs, has all been relocated to our one spot. So here you go. This is the death singularity of shine bugs. This is hilarious how it's basically not animating because it is so bright. You can see the exact points that the light stops being a thing. So here you go. You can see how many are just crammed in there right now. It's barely animating because it's calculating all this. And I think what we came here to see is how much radiation is this putting out. Well, if you remember in our other setup, it was putting out at the peak probably around 6,000 or 7,000 rads, and only in this like one small area. That's kind of where most of them would eventually wind up. But in here, let's see what we got. That is extremely radioactive, to the point that I actually don't think my duplicants can ever go here again. Like, there's a good chance they will just die from going anywhere near here. Like, I don't think, like, on the outskirts here is that awful, because they've clearly spent some time on the outskirts, but this is so much. This is the highest rad amount I've ever seen. So there you go. Pretty ridiculous setup there. And I kind of want to turn it on because we still need a little bit of radiation to finish up our last research. Our research tree is looking like this nowadays, and all we have left... Oh, there's one more here that I should probably grab. Oh, and one there too. Okay, never mind. But there is one left that is for radiation that we need to get. So I'm curious how fast this will fill up a station for it. So let me build out that station really quick, and then we'll check it out. It'll be really dangerous, but let's do it. All right, here we go. First thing I need to do is prevent my duplicants from walking in here, so I'm just going to block this off, and there's really no way for them to get in here while this door is closed. All right, here we go. Let's see how fast this charges up. This is insanely fast. This is the fastest I have ever seen. There you go. Oh, already done. Yep, already going to be full. Okay, we need to turn this off. Okay, this is ridiculous. There we go. This is the strongest radiation setup I have ever made. This is so much faster than everything else. I think the peak that we got on our Radbolt generators in the other setup was like, I don't know, 200 a cycle? And that was like 2,000. So, pretty ridiculous. But yeah, let's get the rest of this research tree all knocked out. That'll be the next achievement that we get. In the meantime, just going to be digging all this stuff out. We still have a long way to go to get everything dug out and get all the material out of the way so we can start our giant rocket setup. In the middle of our building, I just wanted to put an update out there with the oil well setup. So I was oversimplifying it because this will need to be released of its natural gas every once in a while. So I need a way for my duplicants to be able to get in there, and I also need a way to not share too much of the temperature with the outside. So on the inside, this is going to release extremely hot natural gas, which my building should be able to resist as the oil comes out and cools everything. The natural gas that comes out is, yeah, quite up there. But in order to prevent the temperature from sharing out to the outside world, we have this double liquid lock setup. The idea here is that this liquid will be very hot. This liquid will be whatever room temperature is out here. Obviously still a little warm, but we want that to drop over time. But in the middle is just a big vacuumed out area. This is kind of the same principle as the vacuumed out area here. Just as long as there's no medium to touch each other. And yeah, there is a medium to touch each other by the insulated tile. But it will extremely slowly exchange its heat, as opposed to, you know, open air or regular tile or something like that that'll exchange it very fast. That means that this ethanol really won't heat up. This oil will sit at a pretty high temperature, but everything else should be totally fine. And my duplicants just need to get into a suit to get in there. So just thought I'd mention the rest of this build as we were kind of in the middle of building out our rocket area. This one is definitely essential to get a petroleum flow going so we can keep our blast shot making. So there you go. I just wanted to mention that. All right. Here we go. Bubbles is about to complete our research tree. There we go. Good job. Bubbles coming through again for those achievements. So here we go. Let's collect this really quick. Hey, honorary doctorate. Cool. So now we don't need to worry about research anymore, which means we can get rid of all of our research stations. Yeah, so still just making progress on the build for the rockets. Again, it's going to be a while. I'm also a little bit nervous that I'm not going to be able to finish this objective within the scope of this video, because this video is already getting kind of long, and I also am going to need a few days because we are traveling, so I kind of want to get this out as it is, however we finish. So I'll try to go as far as I can, but I might not be able to get the whole rocket set up in this video, but we'll try. Okay, friends, like I feared, I will not be able to get this whole setup up and going before we head out of town. We will be traveling for a few days, but I wanted to get this out so there was at least not a huge gap in videos. Only because this takes so long to film nowadays, considering these setups and everything is getting so big. So I wanted to get this out before then, and this is kind of where we stand right now. One of the things that I'm starting to do is adding some more transit tube drop-off points, and I'll be adding a second suit bank to start getting out into space to finish the rest of this space setup. Just so we have all the space area taken before we start cleaning out the rest of the base and getting our rocket setup going. The first part of the rocket setup is going to be a big area for steam. So I'm starting to gather water. I will be sending a lot more there as well. But we'll have to get to all this in the next video, which I think will probably be out sometime late next week. So this will be the largest gap between videos, but I will be back and on it as soon as I can get there. And we will finish the rocket setup in the next one for sure. So, yeah, thank you very much for watching. I hope you're still enjoying the series. Please let me know what you thought about it or if you have any comments or questions. I'll be back in a little bit.